Welcome back to Today we will learn about the explosive revelations that are about to shake Salem to its very core as the shocking truth behind E.J. DiMera's shooting finally comes to light in ways that will leave every fan speechless. E.J. DiMera's terrifying memory returns with devastating consequences. The moment that Days of Our Lives fans have been desperately waiting for has finally arrived, and it's more heart-wrenching than anyone could have possibly imagined. E.J. DiMera, portrayed masterfully by Dan Feuerriegel, experiences the most horrifying flashback of his entire life as his suppressed memories come flooding back like a devastating tsunami of truth. The shooting incident that nearly claimed his life wasn't the work of a seasoned criminal or a revenge-seeking enemy. It was the trembling hands of young Rachel Black, a child whose innocent world had been shattered by the very man she was pointing the gun at. The psychological impact of this revelation cuts deeper than any physical wound E.J. has ever endured, as he must now grapple with the devastating reality that his own actions drove a child to such desperate measures. What makes this memory recovery even more chilling is the crystal-clear detail with which E.J. now recalls that fateful evening. He can see Rachel's face, frozen in absolute terror the moment she realized what she had done. The child's eyes, wide with shock and immediate regret, haunt him as he remembers her looking just as stunned as he was in those crucial seconds after the trigger was pulled. The gun, Johnny's gun that had been carelessly left within reach, became the instrument of a child's misguided attempt at justice for her beloved grandmother Rachel Blake, whom E.J. had ruthlessly sent away to prevent her testimony. This isn't just a simple case of recovered memory. It's a complete psychological earthquake that threatens to destroy everything E.J. thought he understood about power, family loyalty, and the devastating consequences of his manipulative actions. The man who once declared, "I won" moments before being shot must now confront the reality that his victory came at the cost of a child's innocence and mental stability. Marlena Evans steps into her most challenging role yet. Dr. Marlena Evans, Salem's most respected psychiatrist and the backbone of moral guidance in the community, finds herself thrust into what can only be described as her own personal horror movie. Deidre Hall's character faces an unprecedented challenge that will test every fiber of her professional expertise and maternal instincts, as she realizes the magnitude of the psychological crisis unfolding before her eyes. The timing of Marlena's indefinite leave from the hospital, initially seen as an unfortunate result of budget cuts, now reveals itself as divine intervention in the most twisted way possible. This forced absence from her regular duties means she can dedicate her complete attention to what may be the most critical case of her distinguished career, saving the mind and future of a traumatized child whose actions have set in motion a chain of events that could destroy multiple families. When E.J. approaches Marlena with his recovered memories, the conversation between them becomes a masterclass in crisis management and psychological intervention. Marlena's decades of experience dealing with trauma, possession, and psychological manipulation have prepared her for many things, but nothing quite like this scenario where a child's desperate act of revenge has backfired so spectacularly that it threatens to consume everyone involved. The horror movie aspect of Marlena's situation isn't just metaphorical. It's the living nightmare of watching a child's mental state deteriorate while the adult world around her crumbles under the weight of secrets, lies, and misplaced loyalties. Every decision Marlena makes from this point forward will determine whether Rachel can be saved from the psychological prison she's created for herself, or whether the trauma of her actions will define the rest of her young life. Belle's growing suspicion about who Marlena and E.J. might be protecting adds another layer of complexity to this already volatile situation. As one of Salem's sharpest legal minds, Belle's investigative instincts are picking up on the subtle changes in behavior and the hushed conversations that signal something far more serious than anyone is willing to admit publicly. The courtroom explosion that changes everything. The revelation of Rachel's guilt doesn't happen in the privacy of a doctor's office or the comfort of a family home. It explodes into the public arena of the courtroom with all the subtlety of a nuclear bomb. The timing of this disclosure, whether it occurs before or after the jury reaches their verdict, will have profound implications for how justice is served and how the community processes this shocking turn of events. The legal ramifications of a child being revealed as the shooter create unprecedented challenges for Salem's justice system. Johnny DiMera, who has been standing trial for the shooting, suddenly finds himself in the surreal position of being exonerated by the revelation that his own young relative was the true culprit. The emotional whiplash of this moment, from potential conviction to sudden vindication, will leave lasting scars on everyone involved in the legal proceedings. Court officers and bailiffs, trained to handle the most volatile situations, find themselves struggling to maintain order as the reality of the situation sinks in. The professional composure that defines courtroom proceedings crumbles as the human drama of a family's destruction plays out before a gallery of shocked spectators who came expecting a straightforward criminal trial, but instead witnessed the unraveling of everything they thought they understood about this case. Kristen DiMera's maternal agony reaches breaking point. The preview footage of Kristen DiMera being physically restrained by court officers while screaming in anguish represents one of the most emotionally devastating scenes in recent days of our lives' history. Stacey Hayduk's portrayal of a mother's worst nightmare coming true captures the raw, primal terror that every parent fears, the moment when their child's actions spiral completely beyond their control or protection. Kristen's desperate reaching gesture, her hands stretched out toward her daughter, symbolizes so much more than just a physical attempt to provide comfort. It represents a mother's futile effort to shield her child from consequences that are already in motion, to somehow turn back time and prevent the series of events that led to this devastating moment of public exposure and legal jeopardy. The psychological complexity of Kristen's situation cannot be overstated. As someone who has spent her entire adult life manipulating situations to her advantage, she now faces a scenario that is completely beyond her considerable powers of control. Her daughter, the one person she loves unconditionally, has committed an act that threatens to tear apart the very family structure Kristen has fought so hard to preserve and protect. The revelation forces Kristen to confront uncomfortable truths about her own parenting and the environment she created for Rachel. The child's actions didn't occur in a vacuum. They were the product of a family dynamic where violence, manipulation, and revenge are normalized as acceptable responses to conflict and betrayal, the ripple effects that will reshape Salem forever. This shocking revelation about Rachel's role in the shooting creates a domino effect that will reshape relationships and alliances throughout Salem for months to come. The discovery that a child was capable of such a calculated act of violence forces every adult in the community to examine their own role in creating the toxic environment that led to this tragedy. The psychological evaluation and treatment that Rachel will inevitably require opens up storylines that explore the long-term consequences of childhood trauma and the complex process of rehabilitation for a young mind that has been exposed to too much adult conflict and violence too early. Marlena's expertise will be crucial in determining whether Rachel can recover from this experience, or whether the guilt and trauma will permanently alter her developmental trajectory. The legal system's handling of a child perpetrator presents unique challenges that will test the limits of Salem's justice system and social services. Questions about Rachel's mental state, her understanding of right and wrong, and the appropriate consequences for her actions will dominate the narrative as the community struggles to balance justice with compassion for a traumatized child. The family dynamics within the DiMera clan will never be the same, as trust and loyalty are shattered by the revelation that their youngest member was capable of such violence. The protective instincts of the adults must now be redirected toward healing and prevention rather than revenge and retaliation, marking a potential turning point in the family's historically destructive patterns of behavior.